Say what's happened to the Independent Recovery Task Force that was announced about a week ago by his colleague. If it hasn't yet been convened, if we don't know who the members are or what they're doing or whether they've been to Kensington, would he reconsider sending in commissioners, particularly given what we heard this morning, which is the person that task force are reporting to, i.e. the new leader of Kensington Council, who, despite being a councillor for 11 years, has not been inside a tower block, despite being a cabinet member for 5 years, has not seen fit to go into any of the tower blocks in her borough?
Well, I first of all can reassure the honourable gentleman that the task force will be reporting to my right honourable friend, the Secretary of State, and not to Kensington Council. So I hope I provides him with reassurance. It's an independent body reporting to the Secretary of State.
Pursuant to that point, could the Secretary of State just clarify for us whether the Recovery Task Force has any executive authority whatsoever, or is it purely advisory?
Yeah, it's an advisory, not an executive panel reporting to the Secretary of State, which I think is obviously the proper way to proceed. In her statement announcing the inquiry, the Prime Minister... Can I make some progress? I've given away... Well, OK.
I think it's very, very important that. So we're saying this task force, then, has no executive authority, and the executive authority remains with the Council. So is that a distinction between the task force powers and the powers that would be available to a commissioner if a commissioner was appointed?
Well, the task force will be overseeing what the council does, but as I've said to his honourable friends, it will be reporting to the Secretary of State, who of course can then decide the appropriate way to proceed. So it's independent of the council. It's not reporting to the council, and it will oversee what the council is doing. The Prime Minister identified rightly the immediate priority when she announced the inquiry as establishing the facts of what happened at Grenfell Tower in order to take the necessary action to prevent a similar tragedy from happening again. The inquiry will fulfil that purpose. It will report in 2 phases with, as I've already said, an interim report being published as quickly as possible. But beyond that immediate focus, it's also important that all the wider lessons from both this catastrophe and the inspections of other buildings around the country that followed it are identified and learnt. Sir Martin has said, and I quote, can I finish Sir Martin's quote first? I should make it clear that I shall want to consider a broad range of evidence, including on the role of the relevant public authorities and contractors, in order to help me answer the important questions. I'll give way to the Honourable Lady.
I'm grateful too to the Housing Minister for answering my written question on the privatisation of housing functions in Kensington and Chelsea Council. I find it extraordinary that there is no central management, not even any records kept, of housing contracts within the Housing Department. We now have a situation where there is no accountability and no transparency of the nature of local authority contracts with the private sector involving housing and the degree to which housing contracts are then subcontracted to other private providers. In view of this tragedy, would the Government advise whether there are plans to revisit this policy?
Well, clearly there are a large range of issues on which the inquiry may well wish to make recommendations to the Government, and the Honourable Lady has put that thought on the record now, and as I've said previously, Sir Martin, I imagine, will wish to take note of what views are expressed during this debate.